Do you have a partner who seems to care, but the moment things get serious or the moment you actually need them, they go quiet, they shut down, they pull away, and you're left wondering, if they actually loved me, wouldn't they be fighting for this? It can feel cold, sometimes even heartless, but there's usually a lot more happening underneath the surface than it looks like from the outside. Here's what's often happening. For someone with an avoidant attachment pattern, intense emotions and conflict can feel threatening. Their nervous system becomes activated, their chest might tighten, their mind starts looking for a way out. So instead of leaning into conflict, they shut down, they go quiet. Sometimes they'll tell you they're fine when they're clearly not. Because avoiding the conversation feels easier than staying present with everything they're feeling. It's not necessarily that they don't feel anything. Sometimes it's the opposite. Feeling too much, too quickly can activate a protective response they've learned over time. And for many people, some of this goes back to earlier relationships or childhood. If expressing your feelings meant being criticized, blamed, ignored, or shut down, you can learn that vulnerability and conflict aren't safe. And those patterns can follow you into adulthood, even when you're with someone who actually wants to work things out with you. So they avoid, they shut down, they people please, they say yes when they really mean no. Not necessarily because they're trying to hurt you, but because some part of them learned a long time ago that avoiding conflict was safer than engaging with it. You'll also notice that some avoidant partners carry this quiet belief: I don't really need anyone. It can look like independence. Sometimes it's even worn like a badge of honor. But underneath that independence, depending on someone can feel threatening too. If reaching out for comfort or support repeatedly led to disappointment, one solution is to stop reaching altogether. Not necessarily because they don't want closeness, but because depending on someone has become associated with disappointment. And sometimes there's something even quieter underneath all of this, a sense of not being enough. And strangely enough, the closer you get to them, the more that feeling can become activated. So sometimes, without even consciously realizing why, they'll create distance, pull away. They find a reason the relationship won't work, because controlling the distance can feel safer than becoming deeply attached and risking rejection later on. So if you're seeing this pattern in someone you love, understand something. Their behavior isn't necessarily a reflection of your worth. You're dealing with fear, shame, and protective strategies that may have existed long before you ever came into the picture. That doesn't mean their behavior doesn't hurt, and understanding it doesn't mean you have to accept unhealthy behavior, but understanding the pattern helps you see what you're actually dealing with. So the real question becomes, should you stay? Pay attention to a few things. Do they still try even when they don't get it right? Are they willing to acknowledge their patterns? Are they actually working on themselves? Not just saying, I know I need to change, but actually doing something about it. Therapy, reading, practicing healthier communication, learning to stay present when their instinct is to pull away. And just as importantly, are you doing your own work too? Because attachment patterns rarely exist in isolation. If you're the anxious person in this dynamic, healing can't only be about getting them to change. Both people have to become aware of what they're bringing into the relationship. Otherwise, the same cycle keeps repeating. Here's when I would seriously consider stepping back. If you spent real time working on yourself, you've communicated what you've learned, you've tried to create healthier patterns together, and they consistently show no interest in doing the same. That's significant, especially if months go by and they're still unwilling to look at their own behavior, still unwilling to communicate, still unwilling to try. At that point, you have to pay attention to the relationship you're actually in, not just the relationship you hope it could eventually become. When someone with an avoidant attachment pattern doesn't fight for the relationship, it isn't necessarily a reflection of how much you matter to them. Sometimes it's fear they haven't learned how to work through yet. But understanding someone's wounds doesn't mean you have to carry the relationship by yourself. If you're doing all the work and they're consistently unwilling to meet you there, it's okay to let go of a fight that was never yours to carry alone. If this explains something you've been experiencing, share it with someone who might need to hear it too.